it's really getting clarity about that. It's getting clarity and ownership. And what comes with all of that is confidence. That's where people become I hear people say, I was so unsure and miserable and lacked confidence when I started. And now I feel like there's hope. I really know where I'm going. There's some places for me to go here.
What's up, ADHD Rewired listeners? Happy October and happy ADHD Awareness Month. Before we get into today's episode, just a few quick announcements. We are hosting another registration event on October 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. We're also going to be doing a post Q&A registration event right after our live Q&A on October 10th for our coaching groups, because orientation starts next week. And if our registration events don't work per your schedule, I just added a new button to my website that would allow you to schedule a one-on-one registration call with me. Please only do this if your schedule truly does not work for our registration events and you really do want to sign up, because we would love to have you. All right, more about that at the break. Now, on with today's show. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Shell Mendelson. Shell was trained by Richard Bolles of What Color Is Your Parachute? With a master's in career counseling, Shell offers more than 35 years of client experience while bringing her counseling, coaching, teaching, training, and nurturing gifts to help others clarify and focus on well-defined direction and abundant livelihood. Following her own diagnosis of ADHD later in life, Shell profoundly understands how ADHD can impact one's work and to reliably choose the best career direction. One that takes our, quote, interest-based ADHD brain wiring into consideration. Since January 2021, Shell's Your Next Career Move Masterclass has empowered ADHD adults to create confident career options. Shell,
Yay.
Pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So if you didn't know who Richard Bolles was, most people have probably heard of the name of the book of What Color Is Your Parachute? And so you got to train with him.
Yes, I did.
What was that like?
Yes. Many, many, many years ago. Well, I stayed connected with him over the years. So I kind of got to know him personally as well a little bit. He passed away in 2017, and I'm still connected with his wife, Marcy Bolles, who runs the foundation. But he was just he was very sensitive, hard on his sleeve kind of guy who was dedicated to the career counseling process. And I consider him to be the grandfather of career counseling. He was always the keynote at all the conferences. The one that I would go for and look to for just direction for myself as well. His process changed my life.
How so?
And I mean, I could go into that, but I just wanted to kind of let you know my connection with him. So do you want to ask me another question about him? I'm happy to do that.
Well,
I'm happy to answer.
You said that his stuff sort of changed your life. So how so?
Well, because I had a background as a vocational rehab counselor, rehabilitation counselor, which is a counselor who helps individuals with disability who are unable to perform their job duties. I was working mostly with work in the workers' comp system. So they were injured on the job. They could no longer do their job duties. And I had to find work that interested them and that they could do within their limitations. And I did that for many years until I was just burned out. I didn't like working in the system anymore. It was very bureaucratic. There were attorneys everywhere. There was a state that you had to work within. And I was also undiagnosed. And I think part of why I became pretty resistant to it after a while was because the insurance companies that I was working with, they try and tell you kind of how to do your job. And as you know, people with ADHD don't like that very much. So I think I just kind of got tired of it and I began burning out of it. And it was also because I could see that in the state of California, where it was mandatory, that they were going to shut it down at some point because it just became too expensive for the employer. And I was right. And I tried to warn everybody. I was one of those, with ADHD, we could see the future, right? And I said, look, this thing's going to come to an end. We better start preparing for other things that we want to do. And so I did. Other people didn't, but I did. And I started working with the VA. And what I realized is that I really, at some point, just wanted to work with a person who truly wanted to make a desired change and wasn't basically forced into a system to do something, which meant regular old career counseling, right? Then I discovered Dick Bolles' training. Of course, I knew about What Color is Your Parachute. It had been around for 45 years at that point. And I discovered that he actually trained counselors in his process, and I signed up like in 2 seconds. That was when everything shifted for me because I adapted that process and I created my own version of it using that method. And it was well before I was diagnosed myself. So I was always working with neurotypical people. I'm sure there were quite a few ADHD people that I work with as well, because I didn't know. It wasn't a recognized thing at that point. This was way long ago before it became something that was fairly recognized as a mental health issue. But I always knew that there was something about this process that worked for me personally because I had gone through it twice. When you get trained, you have to actually go through it not once, but twice. And both times I came up with career counselor as what I was supposed to be doing. This was like I was in the right field. I was excited, it excited me just to see that. And also to know that there was something I actually enjoyed doing that wasn't a bunch of assessments that ask you a bunch of questions that are based on similar answers to what other people have instead of my own introspective process, something that asks questions more of me personally and what my preferences are, not comparing myself to other people.
So, what are some examples of some of the questions that you might ask someone, or that you were asked as you're trying to figure out, like, what do you want to do with your career?
Well, we could get into that because that's like the whole process that I do. It is based on what's called the flower model, which is the 7 steps of identifying what your preferences are in different aspects of what will make up your ideal work. The first one are the skills, the people, the working conditions, the fields and industries, the salary and the rewards, your geographical area, and then finally your life purpose. Those were the things that we had to dive into. And we started out writing these stories that I always have my clients do in the very beginning, which is one of the most powerful things that we do. It allows you to really kind of get a much broader view of who you are and what's important to you. Because you start looking at what is it about these stories that is kind of making sense here? What is it? What kind of theme is emerging? A lot of the aspects of the work that I do based on Parachute, I kind of developed on my own, but weren't actually part of it, even though he does ask the question, look and see what kind of themes come up and what kind of clues you get. But it's really like being a detective in your own life. You're a self-detective. And we get all this different information, and eventually the cream starts to rise to the top. And it becomes very clear if you're authentic with yourself and you're not trying to rig the system, so to speak, and answer questions that you think are going to get you a higher paying job or something that has nothing to do with who you really are and what you really want. If you try and rig it, it doesn't work. And I tell people that from the very beginning. You've got to be rigorously honest, super authentic. You've got to be able to just strip away all the money aspect of it. Like if you start answering questions based on, will I make enough money at this? You will never get at what it is that you're supposed to be doing. That all works out eventually, but it's guaranteed that you will end up right back in the same place if you try and rig it. See what I'm saying?
So, if you go right for the money, it's not
Yeah,
gonna
if
work
that's
out.
all you're thinking about, and it's a reasonable thing to think about. It's not something that we ignore.
Mhm.
It's just that in the beginning aspect of what we're doing, the beginning part of it, you've got to be really open to exploring fully without what Bowles calls a safekeeping self. And that's a part of you that says, I can't, I won't, I shouldn't.
Mm.
If I say this, what if, what if, what if? If I put this down, I'm not going to get this answer. I'm not going to get if I do this, what will so-and-so think? What will my peers think? What will my friends think? What if it tells me as if you have no control over it, right? Everybody has control. Everyone has control. They just think they don't if they come up with different answers. The thing is that the answers are going to tell you the direction that is really the truth for you.
So
And
let me ask you this. So we know that with ADHD,
yeah,
self-awareness is, which we actually understand as an executive function. And,
right.
this idea that like, well, how do you know if you're actually lacking self-awareness? Because don't you need the self-awareness to know if you're lacking self-awareness? So how do you address like that particular piece of potential deficits in self-awareness? Because it sounds like a big part of the direction that you support people with and finding the career that works for them has to do with these self-assessment questions.
Yes. Good question. Let me try and break that one down. Okay, so a lot of people with ADHD, and I'm sure other not neurodiverse challenges, are overanalyzers. We can be very over analytical. By that I mean it's not a criticism. It's just that we analyze and we have to figure it out. And is it, what about this and what about that? This is a very nuanced process, and you kind of have to allow yourself to think outside. I hate to say outside, I'm not even going to say outside the box. You just have to allow yourself to think bigger, to think broader, to not stop yourself when certain possibilities come in that you think might derail you in some way. The safekeeping self is something that we talk about throughout the masterclass because it comes up for everybody. One of the first questions I say is, okay, how's it playing its role? And it hasn't peaked in. What's going on? Raise your hand if it's impaired your ability to answer questions fully, freely. So it is something that everybody lives with on a daily basis. So to get rid of it in 8 weeks is not going to happen, right?
It sounds like you make a similar promise to your folks as I do to the people who are signing up for my coaching groups. And I tell them
Yeah.
after the 10 weeks, I can guarantee you're still going to have ADHD.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the safekeeping self is still going to be there. Here's the difference. The first time you become aware that it's impacting you is when the breakthrough starts.
Mm.
You can kind of go, okay, because we talk about it so much. And it is a big piece of this whole process. You cannot ignore it. The first class that I ever did, I had a really amazing group of women, and any of them listening, hello. I hope you're listening because I want you to hear this. They made a big difference to me because one of the things they said was the most important. And I asked them for feedback on the class. I reduced the fee so that we could make it, I could get full on honesty and authentic response from them so that I could make the class better and better. And the one thing that they said was the safekeeping self part is one of the biggest pieces that needs to be addressed of all of it. That is how, first of all, we aren't given, even as in high school or at any point in school, including college, are we given a mandatory class that teaches us how to make incredibly important decisions about what direction we're going to take, either career-wise, college-wise. Like if you go to college, the idea is that you want to end up in a better job, have a career that's going to be last you for hopefully a lifetime, maybe take you to additional training that makes sense, whatever it does. But how do you figure that out? What is the correct way to figure that process out? And I get a lot of flack from other career people who are really into the assessments, and I don't care. Bolles did too. That's why I loved him. He was always the one to stand up for this process versus the assessments. But just giving kids a bunch of assessments and then expecting them to figure all the other part, the safekeeping part, where it breaks down into really getting to know who you are at a very much deeper level, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't play a factor in any of those assessments.
Mm. And I have to imagine
And
that a lot of those assessments are also not normed to a diverse group.
exactly. Well said. That's absolutely true. They are not norms to a diverse group. And I think that's probably one of the most important things right there. But even if they were, it would still be individuals who have given answers that are similar to yours, but they aren't yours.
Right.
They
Yeah.
still aren't yours, right? I mean, it might get a little bit closer, but it's not going to be the full picture. There's no easy route. It's a very nuanced process. You
Mm.
have to think in terms of getting the pieces of it, putting the pieces together. And mostly people with ADHD love to put puzzles together and love to put, get disparate pieces of information and then create systems and do all kinds of stuff like that with it. And this is very similar to that because you are taking a lot of different pieces and you are all of a sudden seeing the commonality, seeing the themes that come up,
Mhm.
seeing the repetition over and over
Seeing those
again. And
patterns.
repetition is everything,
Mm.
right? People don't realize that. Why do I keep thinking about this thing? Why does this keep coming up for me? I can't make a living at this, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. But there's some aspect of it that you cannot ignore after a while because it's going to keep haunting you.
Yep.
So you might as well figure out how to put it together and make it some part of what you do.
I think
It doesn't have to be literal.
that entrepreneurial sort of approach, take a
Yeah,
look at the thing that you love doing and you can't stop thinking about. And instead of just saying, I can't make money doing that, ask the question, how could I make money doing that?
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And there's always a way to make money at it, but you've got to stay true to where your interests lie and what's sustainable for you in terms of the energy that you have around that particular topic. If you don't have that energy, it's going to fall flat at some point.
So I am guessing that you've received the question maybe a couple of times in your career, especially since shifting your focus to ADHD. What's the best
Mhm.
career for someone with ADHD? Because I see this question all the time in different Facebook groups and on different social media things. And so I'm guessing you have some thoughts about that. And I want to get those thoughts from you as soon as we take a quick break and we come back. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ARC. ARC is ADHD Rewired Coaching. Learn more and get your invitation to begin your pre-registration process at coachingrewired.com. Our 34th season of coaching and accountability groups starts next week on Thursday, October 12th, which means time really is running out, but it's not too late. So if you wait for the last minute, that's like now. We have an upcoming registration event tomorrow on Wednesday, October 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. The website again is coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our fall interest list so you can get your special invitation to start your pre-registration process. If you're like me and so many others with ADHD, maybe you've been told to just try harder. Maybe you've listened to the podcast or many other podcasts, many episodes, read many books, read many articles, maybe even been to an ADHD conference. Maybe you're hoping to find that one golden solution, that number one hack or a cure-all option that'll solve all your challenges. Maybe you bounce from one tool to the next because sticking to one tool just gets boring and maybe feels unrealistic. And maybe you feel like you've tried it all, but nothing seems to stick. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that all of that actually is completely normal. Sometimes going down an information gathering, solution hunting rabbit hole is normal. Feeling fed up is normal. Bouncing from one tool to the next is normal. Now, there are times when I get stuck and I feel and do all of those same things too. Then I'm reminded by my compassionate ass-kicking team and by our amazing coaching alumni community that it's okay to lose steam. It's okay when we lose momentum. Then to pause and to reevaluate and to switch up our tools so we can move forward. And the best part about our coaching groups and this wonderful community is that we really don't have to do any of this alone. Yes, we'll coach around planning and making actionable to-do lists, using your calendar and the like. Yes, we'll introduce guides for time tracking, energy tracking, long-term goals, and more. And sure, you'll get tons of tools and lots of useful ADHD management strategies. But season after season, the most positive impact we've seen for our members is gaining a sense of community and belonging from learning alongside other adults with ADHD who just get it.
I decided to join the group because I was struggling with getting started on anything. I felt like I had no momentum and no get up and go, and I just did not understand how to navigate everyday life like everyone else.
I decided to join the group because over the years I have been struggling in my jobs. I had lost the confidence in my abilities due to horrible bosses. My new job was overwhelming. I was having issues with focusing, keeping on track. I was late with everything, and I decided to get properly tested for ADHD, hoping that a proper diagnosis would allow suggestions and assistance in addition to medication to be successful in work and life.
When I realized that I'm not going to ever be like those without a disability, but that doesn't mean that I cannot still make progress, it's an absolute game changer for me. And from that, I learned that not getting started was due to not having a clear roadmap.
The simplicity of things such as breaking down tasks, specificity, how, what, why, actions must have destinations, etc., that as hard as things are, there are accessible tools and solutions to help me take baby steps to make life a traffic-free journey.
Planning my year, then my quarter, then my day fixed so many of the problems. Like I don't dread Mondays, I don't dread the start of the day. I just have a map and know that this is what I'm going to do next, and I'm excited to get it started. I also realized that I have to take better care of myself physically and mentally to get and keep my energy levels up, and it keeps that executive function at the right level whenever I'm taking better care of myself.
And I learned I am not alone. Everyone in the group was the most of everything. To hear everyone's troubles, triumphs, showed me not only am I not alone, but they feel as safe with me as I do with them.
When I think of success, I now understand that I shouldn't base it on things out of my control, and that I recognize for me, success is based on my family connection, not my work accolades.
I learned that it isn't my fault I am the way I am, and that my past issues were due to ADHD and not me. That I'm able to move forward with anything I can dream of as long as I take the time to plan for things that are necessary in order to plan for things that are enjoyable.
In the group, I'm most proud of making connections and caring about my A team. I normally don't connect with people, especially strangers that are not with me every day, but I am truly and actually invested in what happens to the people in my team and want to stay in touch with them from here until indefinite.
What I did not expect was how much I would learn about myself and about others, how big the group would be, how happy I would be about that. I never anticipated the deep dive into life, the feelings that would be revealed. I never expected the community, the ability to have accountability during and after, to make friends, to want to continue to learn about them and learn with them.
To anyone thinking about joining this group, I would say if you are looking to become more aware, understand why you are like you are, and learn how to accept and deal with it, join the group today, not tomorrow. You're going to learn how to accept your limitations and take control of your days, months, and years.
If you're thinking about joining this group, oh my God, do it now. Seriously. It is hard to put into words how incredible this experience truly was. You will be part of a community of people who are just like you. No, really, just like you. You'll become aware of those things in your life that you couldn't have avoided, and within these 10 weeks, you will be given tools and shown how to use them to function in ways you only dreamt about.
There really is no greater investment than investing in yourself, and it feels even better when others are also invested in you too. And don't forget, we rolled back our prices to 2020 prices. We know the economy is struggling right now, and we know lots of you are as well. So we're doing our part to make it easier for you to get your ADHD rewired. Because here at ADHD Rewired, we believe that ADHD management isn't just about the tools. It's when we add understanding, compassionate and supportive people who will remind us of our strengths when we're feeling stuck, and who will help pick us up when we fall down, so that we can flounder less and flourish more. Because we get it. I get it. I know that not knowing how to manage your ADHD can make life so hard, and it doesn't need to be that hard. So what are you waiting for? Go beyond just managing your ADHD and start thriving with your ADHD by trying something different. Group coaching with ADHD Rewired. Start now by getting your name on our fall interest list at coachingrewired.com to get your special invitation to start your pre-registration process so you can join us for our next fall registration event, which is tomorrow, October 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then we have one more next week, so check the website to get the details on that. And a quick reminder, if our last registration events, because I think we only have 2 left right now, if our last 2 registration events do not work for your calendar, for your schedule, and you really do want to join us, I just added a way on our website for you to schedule a one-on-one call with me. But we would love to help you get your ADHD rewired. So if you really want to join, but those registration events don't work for your schedule, go ahead, schedule a call with me, and we'll get you signed up. Get started at coachingrewired.com. One more time, that's coachingrewired.com. We really can't wait to meet you. All right, we are back, and let's answer that question that I presented right before we went to break, and that is, what is the best career for someone with ADHD? Because there's certainly just one answer, right?
That's such a fun question. I love it. There is no such thing. It doesn't exist. The best career is the one that's right for you personally, individually, which could be literally anything. Anything that's out there, any combination of things that are out there, any way that you go about doing it, like in your own business as a solo provider, as an entrepreneur where you've got a team and you're raising money and blah, blah, blah. That's like a whole other ball game. Or you're looking for a specific kind of job with a specific kind of company. You still need to know what it is that gets you up in the morning, what gets you going, what energizes you very specifically. And if you don't have that information and you can't answer the question, what do I want? Not does what my mom or my dad or anybody else wants. What do I want? How many people you think can answer that when it comes to their work, the kind of work they want? If you were to ask 100 people, how many of them do you think would be able to answer that question?
Of ADHDers or general population?
General, anybody, even especially ADHDers.
By the way you set it up, I'm going to guess it's lower than I think. 50%?
No, not even close.
Really?
Just maybe 5 or 10%.
Get out.
People really, really know what it is that they truly want. Because what you hear most often, and what I hear when I talk to people in the intro calls I do, I fell into this situation. I was offered this situation. This came up for me as a possibility. Somebody referred me to, and it never has very much to do, or rarely has very much to do with, this is something that I decided for myself based on my desires, the things that really interest me in all areas, right? And when I say things like working conditions, that's a big area because, we have the accommodations plan through ADA. Well, that's fine, except for it's very limited and it's based on what employers feel is okay. They call it reasonable accommodation. Well, reasonable accommodation may be fine for them, but not for you necessarily. So you need to get very specific about what the conditions are that you need to work purposefully, productively, happily, or at least satisfyingly in a way that makes you feel energized and excited to take on the day. And you know that with our brain wiring, when we're in that place, what do you think we can do? Pretty much anything, right?
I'm really struck by what you said a moment ago about the only 5 to 10% of people really know.
Very few people know.
Like, no wonder why there's so many people who are so freaking unhappy.
They're so miserable, so sad, so sad.
I often refer to it as the neurotypical superpower of being able to do the 9-to-5 job that they don't really like for 40 years.
No, they can't.
I no way. Like I would tell people that, like, look, if you don't like what you're doing, like, someone could offer me $10 million a year to be their accountant. One, that'd be
Yeah.
a really poor investment on their end because I'm lousy with numbers. But like, I have zero interest in it. My brain doesn't do that. So it doesn't matter how much someone would offer me as compensation, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to work for me.
I just have to ask you something, Eric. Look at what you're doing now, and you're very energized.
Yeah, because it's fun. Like, I look at most of the work that I do here is I get to play.
Yeah, you're smiling the whole time.
Well,
You
it's like,
know?
yeah, I'm not in a
That's
cubicle.
what you want.
I'm doing what I'm
Okay.
choosing to do, right? Like, that's.
But that's it. Just know that it is possible for everybody to be in that position when you know what you want.
What do you say to about the people who maybe need to have those sort of stepping stone jobs? You know, those like, because I'm here. I'm 42.
Yeah.
I'm 42 years old, right? I've built this business over the last 10 years or so. But like, I've had jobs before that were in social work that like there were lots of parts that I liked of it, and there were parts that like I struggled at profoundly, primarily the paperwork, right, or the constantly having to be on call. But I also realized that like I needed to have those jobs and do some of that grunt work in order to get to where I am today.
Absolutely. Okay, so the difference between somebody who knows what they want and someone who doesn't know what they want is they aren't going to even see stepping stones. Like they aren't even going to notice what those stepping stones are. And when you do know what you want, you know that there are stepping stones. And so you have to know what you want first before the stepping stones appear.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to like be self-employed. I didn't know that I was going to get into an online business and like that was going to become my entire business. Actually, it took me a while to even realize that like, oh, I have two businesses now. To recognize like, okay, which one do I need to focus on? Because I can't, try to. What's the idea? Try to catch two rabbits, you get none.
Yeah.
So I chose to focus on the on ADHD Rewired.
Good problem to have, Eric.
True. That is true. So what about people that come in and let's say they have a highly marketable skill set and maybe it's in a lucrative profession and they hate it?
That's pretty much everyone I talk to, or most of the people I talk to.
Because I do see this sometimes where people like they're good at the thing, it pays them well, and they're miserable.
Yeah. Anyone who contacts me is in career crisis. Otherwise, why would they even click on my website and read through it and schedule an intro call with me? They're in career crisis. And whether they work with me or not, it's not going to go away.
So what are the things that people say during that initial, like tell me some of like the stories that you hear from people who are reaching out to you?
So I just spoke with somebody yesterday who is a very high level creative director for a very well-known company. If she's listening to this, she knows I'm talking about her. We had a great call. She has all that. She's a superstar, literally a superstar in her. I think the main issue with her is that she is really looking for something that is going to fulfill her soul, get down to more of a soul level, and seeing more and more that what's going on in her environment isn't working for her, right? And when it gets to that soul level, because a lot of people with ADHD really are purpose-driven. We are purpose-driven, I think, as a whole. Not all of us are super purpose-driven. Some of us may not recognize it, but most of the people I talk to are. And when they're in kind of and I'm not saying hers was soulless, but some people do come in and they're in almost a soul-crushing kind of situation. Not everybody. And some people actually like what they're doing, but they want more. And they have an opportunity within their companies to maybe do a lateral move, but they want to make sure it's the right move for them. I've got people like that who are in the Masterclass. So I never assume that everybody's in a job they hate. Just that they want more and they recognize that they can see the writing on the wall. They can see that down the line, things aren't going to be so pretty. They can see that their company might be going in a direction because they can see the change in so many changes that corporations go through all the time. Change in personnel, change in platforms, change in dynamic, everything, CEOs, it all changes and there's no control when you're an employee over any of that stuff. So if you're in a company where you're really happy and you can kind of see like our brains allow us to do because we have these 360-degree, we can see the future before other people can kind of brains. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
We sometimes will have a jump start on that by realizing we've got to look at some other options. We may need to look at some other options. And how do I figure this stuff out? And that's when they come to me. It's like, how do I figure this stuff out?
So how do we figure this stuff out? What
We
are
go
some
through
what are
this
some of these
process
questions?
and
Yeah.
it's not easy. Okay. It's
Sure.
nuanced. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if there was, if this was an easy thing to do, there wouldn't need to be career coaches and career counselors.
I've been at it for 35 years. Like I said, I've been working with ADHD people for almost 15 years now. Right when I got my diagnosis, I said, oh my gosh, I've got to work with my tribe. Look at what I went through when I went off track. I can't even imagine people that have been off track for a while, what they're going through. And I just said, this is it for me. I've got to work with ADHD people. And it was then when I started really building up my repertoire of graphic documents that I added to the process that I use that helped break things down more, and all the metaphors I made into images for people so they can, when we're talking about it, the cream rising to the top, literally there's a graphic with cream rising to the top. Because we need that. We need things broken down. We need them graphic. We need to have easier directions or ways that we can figure this stuff out step by step and take it incrementally.
When we were first talking and you were telling me a little bit about your 8-week masterclass, you said that once you help people discover their what, their why appears. Can you talk to that?
Did I say that? Just teasing. But you kind of, I think, translated
or the
it
how
a little
appears.
bit.
I'm sorry. Did I say the why? Let me try that again.
Yeah, the how, more like the how, the
All right.
steps.
So
The steps will appear.
all right.
Yeah.
So you had said that once you discover your what, that the how appears. So will you talk a
Right.
little bit to that?
The next steps. Because the next steps could be something as simple as gathering more information and doing more research.
What does that
on
mean
a
when you say
spec-
doing more research?
there's like online research and then there's human research. So there's two types of research, and we talk about both. You've heard informational interviewing. I twist people's arms over Zoom to get those done. Those are the life-changing. That's when things start really shifting for people. They're not about a job interview, but they're about connecting with other people doing something that you both are interested in.
Chat, for people who have been listening to the podcast for a long time, probably have heard the
Yeah.
story. But one of the question that I asked about, like, what kind of research really comes from, because I see so many people, they think research and they're just like staying online, and you're going to barely scratch the surface of
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
So shortly after I got my clinical licensure as a social worker, it's about, I think, 5 or 6 weeks after I got my license, I was laid off, and I was laid off the same week that I now had a new mortgage. I just bought my first house.
Ooh.
So what did I do? I reached out to my clinical supervisor who did my supervision when I was studying for my LCSW exam. She put me in contact with her mentor. I met with her mentor. He put me in contact with a few people. I met with them. So I didn't even need to meet with that many people. Like, the advice that I was actually given was to go get an actual physical map, draw a 25-mile radius around it, and like go meet all the people doing similar things that I want to do. And I took the sort of the truncated version of that. I met with a handful of people, and it opened up tremendous possibilities and opportunities that helped me really launch my business, which went from having 0 clients to a full clinical practice in 6 months. So it was like, for people who are trying to figure out what they want to do, I just really want to encourage people, and I'm assuming you're also, I would echo this, talk to people, get off the internet.
Yes. You can start there, but in the class, we move very quick, and I go, okay, now it's time to get out there. And it's not just talking to people in the information, it's also meetups, it's also organizations, talking to people who recruit other people into their organizations of things that you're interested in, like the professional organizers organization or the architects like local organizations that sometimes might have meetups or even conventions that are happening close to you where you can meet hundreds of people, come as like a guest. You can always show up as a guest, right? once you make that human connection, it's a very different experience. You can ask very specific questions that have nothing to do with what you see online, or they may be a little bit, and some of the questions that you might have had about very often when people do stuff online, they see, oh, here's how much this group of people make, what their yearly salary is or something, and they get turned off and they never look at that thing again.
Yeah.
And I tell them, if you look at the money part of it instead of the interest part of it, you could be cheating yourself out of an incredible opportunity. That's why I say it's really hard to do because people are very money oriented. But money is not going to take you through your entire career. It's going to be fine for a while. And then it's going to be like, I'm making a ton of money and I'm bored as crap. And then once you start to get bored with ADHD, what happens is the mistakes start showing up. You miss deadlines. The boss calls you on the carpet. Things like that start to show up. It doesn't last you cannot do that forever. You have to go back to what it is that is going to be satisfying to you and energize. I like to use the word energizing because it's the wind beneath your wings. I like to use that term. That's the only one I can come up with. But whenever I say it, people are shaking their heads. Yeah, I know what you mean. The wind beneath my wing. I know what you mean, right? It's that little push from behind that we get when we're really interested in knowing more about something, exploring it, expanding on it, growing it in different ways. Like we start out, and I use this image of a tree with a bunch of branches. It was a simple thing. The foundation of the tree is the industry or the special knowledge or topic that you're in. Like I use the example of food. I love everything to do with food, growing food. I'm not talking about myself. I like eating food, but I'm not. But I just use it as an industry because I have a lot of people who are really into growing and farming and planting and all kinds of things, gardening. So the food industry, anything to do with food is like the foundation or the trunk. But then you look at all the branches you could expand out into. You could be a farmer, a caterer, a chef, a talk show host on food, a magazine writer on food, bring in your photography and take some pictures of food. There's so many different things you can do with those different branches. But that's where our minds go because we're so creative. We'd like to expand out into different areas. You're doing it. You're podcasting and you have a clinical LCSW license, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be a big departure. How many people who are LCSWs are podcasters?
I mean, it's the list of podcasters seems to be growing every day. It's like everyone and their mother seems to have a podcast now. But, I often will joke because I'm helping other people in my...
But you love it.
Oh, I love it.
You like energy. What is it about you that you like doing? So you like working with people. I'm talking about you. I'm going to really nail you, Eric. You like working with people. You like helping. It probably started out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Helping people understand themselves better, explore maybe their past or whatever. I'm not sure what initially got you into it. But how much are you doing that in the podcast? Only you're doing it at a different level. So it's taking something that you know and you're expanding it into something completely different.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I've always done
that's
stuff.
where our brains go. We need to have that foundation. And that's what I like. That's what I help people focus on is what is that foundation? And it's a tough one for people because a lot of times that foundation doesn't match up with what they imagine for themselves.
Yeah, the story that probably somebody else actually wrote, and that they have to realize that, that's actually not my story. That's that's my parents' story that I adopted, and realize, you're the editor of your life. You can actually make that change and say, I'm going to write my next chapter, and it's going to be my way.
Exactly. And to own it.
Yeah.
I love to use the term own it. If you don't own it, you're always going to be teetering and not serious. There has to be this like feet firmly planted wherever, putting your staff in the ground or whatever and saying, this is who I am.
Yeah.
It's really getting clarity about that. It's getting clarity and ownership. And what comes with all of that is confidence. That's where people become I hear people say, I was so unsure and miserable and lacked confidence when I started. And now I feel like there's hope. I really know where I'm going. There's some places for me to go here.
Especially when you recognize that, oh, there's this thing I'm actually good at and I can make this a marketable
Yeah.
skill and have success in it. Like that's where confidence comes from. It comes from actual success and efficacy of the things you're trying to do. Speaking of things I'm trying to do, I need to take a quick break, and then we will be right back for the wrap up, where I would love for you to share with us a little bit about your 8-week masterclass. So we will be right back. Hey there, ADHD Rewired listeners. It is time once again for many of your favorite parts of this podcast, an ad for a product that does not exist. Hey there, ADHD Rewired listeners. Ever wish you could help the neurotypicals in your life walk a mile in your shoes? Well, now neurotypicals everywhere can experience what it's like to have ADHD without the lifetime commitment. Introducing the ADHD Empathy Sphere. Imagine an orb that lets you feel the whirlwind of distractions, impulses, and shiny objects that people with ADHD navigate daily. It's like a theme park for your brain, but the ride never stops. Features include social media cyclone. Feel the pull of Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok all at once, making it impossible to focus on just one. Shiny object disco ball. Experience the allure of irrelevant yet fascinating distractions that pop up when you least expect them. The thought to mouth express train. Now, your neurotypical friends can experience those awkward moments when your brain's brakes fail to suppress that rude or inappropriate comment. Random thought generator. Get interrupted by thoughts like, did I leave the stove on? Or what's the meaning of life? Or I wonder if that's the same squirrel that keeps coming by my window. Right when you're trying to concentrate. That actually happened and I just totally ad-libbed that. Hyperfixation tunnel. Dive deep into a subject you didn't care about 5 minutes ago and now can't stop thinking about. And because it's ADHD Awareness Month, if you order now, we'll include a free time work clock that makes 5 minutes feel like an hour and an hour feel like 5 minutes. Now, all those adorable neurotypicals in your life can experience the time blindness that comes standard with ADHD. Pricing? Just 3 easy payments of your undivided attention. We know it's a steep price for some. Get your ADHD Empathy Sphere today. And finally, your neurotypical friends and family will understand what it's really like to be you. It's the perfect gift for any person that says, ADHD can't be that hard, can it? Just try harder. Disclaimer, the ADHD Empathy Sphere is not a real product. Side effects may include newfound empathy, a greater understanding of ADHD, and a sudden urge to stop saying, just focus. Consult your nearest ADHD coach or therapist before pretending to use this imaginary object. All right, we are back for a few more minutes with Shell Mendelson. All right, so Shell, you have this 8-week masterclass.
Yeah.
Who is this for and what could people learn from this masterclass?
Well, this is for people who don't know what they want and want to figure it out. I like to say it's the gap. It fills the gap that most of us never had the directions for. We never had the opportunity to figure it out. And that's really what it is. And it's also being able to work with other people who are ADHD. Generally, we are a very smart group, super intelligent, great sense of humor. But for a lot of people, it's the first time they've ever had a chance to work and explore and network with and really commune with other people who are going through the same process. So it's an individual process, but you've got these other people along for the ride that are helping you.
I'm guessing that you see a lot of what I see, and that what happens in group is just like, it's magical. Like it's
magical.
Yeah.
It really, I always wonder, why did I just do individual for so long? I mean, I had wanted to do a group thing for many years. It's just it took many years to put the actual curriculum together so that it was very step by step and it was structured enough. It moves very quickly. So I always tell people you've got to really, don't even sign on if you're not committed, going to be there for 8 weeks. Come in with like, I am going to look at all the options. I realize these things about myself. I'm willing to do it. I'm going to support other people as well, because there's a lot of networking that comes out of it. There's always people who know somebody doing something you're interested in. It's incredible. Even in a group of like 4. I've had groups of 4 where they come up with all kinds of other, connections that they make. If you, I'm happy to answer all the questions about it. It's 8 structured weeks based on what color is your parachute, with lots of, I like to say that I cherry pick it quite a bit. We use a workbook. Can I pitch my book now?
You can pitch your book, because I actually love that you're pitching something that's not completely finished yet.
It's not completely finished. No, so the process of doing this was like all the ADHD stuff we've all been through. It's like, I've never done it before. So I'm going to, all the shiny object stuff that came at me, I just grabbed onto it. It was wrong. I wasted a lot of money and time, but I had to learn the hard way, unfortunately, which I always do. That seems to be my process. I have the best editor. I have the best graphics person she was actually a client of mine, and she's the one who created the original graphics for me. And now I brought her in, and she's really diving into the book. Oh my gosh, we've really evolved together. The editor is ADHD. Everyone has ADHD is diagnosed. So even the PR person, I just want to make sure everybody's understanding the audience that we're presenting to here, so that when I get feedback, it's coming from, is this something I would be interested in? How would I view this? So the editorial process is just kind of starting. I'm still working on some of the exercises. It's a course book. It's not a workbook. It's actually a course. It will take you from the very beginning with all of the information that I provide people in my class. It's like a class in a book.
Yeah.
I'm planning to do an audio companion to it, so I can give client examples and give things like that along the way. All the nuances can kind of go along with it. I plan to do that. It'll be released a little bit later after the book is released. But I'm getting excited because now I can actually see it. Everything's done in Canva, living color, graphic instructions broken down. It's spiral bound, so it lays flat and you can write in it, and you don't have that stupid crease that you have to deal with. I got feedback on, what does your ADHD need to do this book? And I envision some people meeting up in little groups and working together on it and doing it piece by piece, having conversations about it. I have so many, my mind goes crazy. I have people in other countries who are excited about what's coming out. So I'm thrilled, and I'm really pushing it now because it's time. It's time to let people know it's coming. Hopefully December, January, somewhere around there.
Well, I'm going to ask you to share your website and any other contact information. And for patrons, if you have a few extra minutes, I'm going to ask you to stick around so I can ask you another couple questions here for our patrons. So, Shell, go ahead and share your website.
careercoachingwithshell.com.
And of course, that will be in the show notes. So, any final thoughts for listeners?
Do what you love, dang it. If you aren't really clear about what you want, now's the time to really dig into it and just be prepared that it is a process. It's not something that happens over the night. It's nuanced, but do it because it's the rest of your life you're talking about, at least your work life. And for me, my work life is like going to be the rest of my life, right? You too, right? I can imagine when you get older, you don't get sick of doing it. It's a fun thing.
Yeah, and I'll continue to work for probably a really long time. Probably just as I get older, and some of my interests evolve, I'll just do it differently, and probably continue to do less of the stuff I don't like and more of the stuff I do like. And
you'll write a few books. You got a few books in you, Eric. Yeah,
having them in me and getting them out of me are two different scenarios, and that might be for another conversation. Well, Shell, thank you so much. This was really a pleasure. And if you want to hear the rest of this conversation, because I'm going to ask her a couple more questions, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/ADHD Rewired. So, Shell, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. This was very fun. Thank you.
And that's it. That is our episode. Congratulations on making it to the end. And I want to thank again Shel Mendelson for joining me today. If you want to get the show notes and any resources mentioned in today's episode, head on over to ADHDrewired.com/podcast. By the way, if you are listening to this on the day it came out, don't forget next week is our monthly live Q&A with me and the rest of the ADHD Rewired team. And we even added a post Q&A registration session for our upcoming season of coaching and accountability groups that also start next week. So don't miss out. That's next week on Tuesday, October 10th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Head on over to ADHDrewired.com and click on that events tab to register so you can join us live on Zoom to get your ADHD-related questions answered, and to join us for our post Q&A registration session for our upcoming season of coaching groups. Love the podcast? Find value in the show and want to support our work? Head on over to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon, where you can get this show uninterrupted with all the ads and announcements at the very end of the episode for $5 a month or more. Want access to themed and guided co-working sessions to boost your productivity with other adults with ADHD? What about real-time, around-the-clock body doubling and accountability? You can find that at our Adult Study Hall membership community at adultstudyhall.com. It is free to try for the first week, and it works way better if you actually try it. Then it's only $19.99 a month after that. And if you want even more relatable stories and want to connect with other amazing folks with ADHD, why not apply for our free community on Facebook at ADHDrewired.com/community. Find it all: Adult Study Hall, registration to our monthly live Q&As, show notes to this and past episodes, information about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups, our free Facebook community, and more, all at ADHDrewired.com. That's ADHDrewired.com. And don't forget, the International Conference on ADHD is coming November 29th. Go to chadd.org to learn more. Thanks for listening, and happy ADHD Awareness Month. And we will see you all next week.